Greetings and welcome back to the Home Slice. What's up, guys? I have a sort of unique episode for you today, but warning, I'm probably going to be a bit long and rambly because it contains a story about the last 2.5 months of my life that I wouldn't have told on the channel yet. So brace yourselves for me to be a bit talkative. First off, I'm shooting on a new phone. I got an iPhone 12 Pro. It's the first time I've ever bought a phone that was less than like 6 years old. Up until now, I've been limping along with, I think it's a 8. The microphone has gotten progressively worse. You guys would have noticed the audio cutting in and out when I try to do any filming with my phone. So I got a new phone, hopefully for better light processing, better HD, better microphone on my phone, and to be able to shoot in 2 perspectives. So I've been really excited about that. The way that I've got a new phone without it being exorbitant is I'm in the US right now. So there you go. That's, I guess, part 1 of the news. But before we get to that, I just got to show you that we've really taken a leap back in time to the olden days of my YouTube channel. I'm out here on my in-laws' farm, and I'm currently shooting on one of those janky bendable tripods next to a creek. And it just really reminisces of the days before I even had a tripod. So if you guys were on board with the channel back then, I'm sure some of you will be wondering, if you just got this new camera to be able to shoot like interview style from 2 different perspectives and video from 2 different perspectives, why are you not doing it now? And the answer to that is that I hadn't checked the battery on my DJI Osmo Action 3, I think is what I use, the whole time that I've been in the US, which is just over 2 months now. And the battery is indeed only at like 10% and it would cut out. So I didn't think it worth the whole setup process. Why, you might ask? Also, are you at your in-laws farm? So my father-in-law is a hardworking farmer. He raises chickens in a big industrial barn, and they have about 100 head of cattle, and they live in southern Washington state. Now, I was planning to come back with my family to the US to reconnect with family and friends in early August, but as it happened, my father-in-law was actually in an accident. He was out creating bales of hay, and his hand got caught in the baling machine, and he sustained a really bad injury, and he ended up losing his left index finger and crushing pretty severely his other 3 fingers on that hand, excluding his thumb. The thumb is untouched, which is a really fortunate thing. However, he's in a lot of pain. He's had multiple surgeries to sort of reconstruct, and he's got really limited mobility and strength in that hand for the time being. When this happened, Danny and I, my wife and I, decided let's change our tickets to go back to the US a little bit earlier. That's just something you want to be around for. You want to be around to help. You want to be around to spend those times together while the family's processing the changes. You want to be there for people. So we changed my ticket, and July 15th, I ended up unexpectedly flying out to come back here to Washington State. Whenever I travel back to the States, I try to film and edit videos ahead of time so that I can take a little bit of a break. So I personally have been on a 2-month break, even though you guys have been watching content which I've uploaded previously. But I figured my whole EDC has been different on the farm for reasons which I'll explain, and it's undergone a lot of changes, and I thought it would be kind of cool to take you through what I've been carrying, a bit of what I'm doing. Hopefully I'll run around and shoot some video on the farm of me actually doing work and give you guys a little bit of a tour and include you in this part of my life. So the things that I've been carrying have revolved, they've actually been quite budget, quite cheap things. And the reason for that is that these Blade HQ sales get me. I get on Blade HQ and I'm like, oh, like they're running that for 50% off or that for 50% off. And then I want to buy things because, you know, people at random times will come to me, you guys probably know a little bit about this, being knife nerds yourselves, and they're like, hey, I need a pocket knife, or I need a camping knife, what do you recommend? And in New Zealand, prices can be fairly high, and I just don't like blowing a lot of money on stuff. So when I get a really good clearance sale, I'll often buy a couple different knives, or multiple of the same knife on sale. And then I'll have them kind of stashed, and when people are like, hey, do you have a recommendation for a good pocket knife, I can turn around and sell it to them for a good price, and they get a good price, and I recoup some money for the YouTube channel. So it's a win-win in my book. So down that vein, Blade HQ has run a few odd sales of discontinued products, or just clearance sales at different times of the past year. And I like to kind of monitor those from time to time. And when there's a really good deal, I'll grab some things. But I didn't want to take a bunch of nice knives back to the United States, because I knew that when I returned to New Zealand, I was going to have these knives that I purchased, which I then would want to have the space in the bag. And I don't want to be traveling with like 30 knives, because that's a bit questionable in TSA. But anyway, you guys relate. So I decided not to bring most of my nice knives back home. I have started carrying some different knives. I went through that period of time where I was kind of minimizing and just carrying my Spyderco, and I'm out of that time period now, so I'm demoing some different knives, and there'll be future videos coming out about that pretty soon. But overall, I wanted to give these budget knives a try, and I wanted to not pack a whole bunch of stuff back to New Zealand. So first up, I have been daily carrying the Cold Steel SRK Light, SRK or compact, I guess, SRKC in SK5 steel. This knife and the 6.5-inch version both went on a pretty awesome sale partway through last year, and I was like, oh man, if anybody asks me for a good camping knife, if I had one of these available to give them, I would feel really good about putting some tough SK5 steel, well-designed knife into people's hands. I'd be confident that that would be a blessing to them. So I bought one of the full-size version and one of the 4-inch versions. Usually I'm more of a big knife guy, but here around the farm, I've actually been carrying the compact more, and I've been finding that the precision of it, matched with just a little bit of power, has been really helpful. There's been a handful of jobs where I've had to pry something. There's a board that fell down on top of a pulley, like a chip board, not like plywood, but you know, like the glue laminated chips. And it fell down on top of a pulley around the barn, and I had to get it off before it broke the pulley. So I pulled out one of my Cold Steel SRKs in a PVC pipe, and I just batoned right through that board all the way up to the pulley and the steel cable, and then popped it apart and dropped it off and saved that from damage. So I've had some hard use, but it's also been a pleasant knife to use for just everyday stuff. It's not very nice for food prep. I've tried a little bit of that, but it's a bit too thick for that. But I've also been finding that you can kind of get back here on the handle, and the blackberries just take over here in Washington State. They just vine up everywhere. And so they'll be reaching new stringers out into the roadways or walkways. And as I go past, I'll pull out my Cold Steel SRK and just prune back those stringers, not the parts that are producing berries, because there are delicious Washington blackberries out right now. I'll try to get some on camera, but the ones that reach out and just, you know, are trying to expand the largeness of the plant, and that's their only function. I've been carrying this on my belt, and I actually have been tucking it into my pocket, and I'll push it pretty far forward and pull my shirt over the top, so it doesn't look like, if people come visit the farm, like I'm carrying a huge knife. But then if I go out to the chicken barn or whatever, I can slide it back on my belt and pop it out, and then it's easy to access in and out. Really enjoying that. I felt like, man, you get a Cold Steel SRK on clearance sale, cool color. The design sort of speaks of like they borrowed some concepts from the old Falcon-Even A1, and it's just a good design overall. It's robust, it's capable, but it's slim enough. It's like lightweight enough, very lightweight. So really been enjoying that. Probably about 30% of the time I have been carrying the Cold Steel SRK up until recently, because recently I visited 2 viewers who both gave me some knives, but I'm going to be covering that next episode. I'm just going to talk about what I've been carrying for the first month here in episode 1 of Farm EDC. Number 2 thing that's been really valuable here at the farm, very valuable here at the farm, is my Gerber Center Drive. I brought my Gerber Center Drive along. It's a solid, robust multi-tool. It's a bit of a brick, but if you're planning on wearing work pants anyway, it doesn't matter that much. It's got the centered screwdriver that spins and twirls like an actual screwdriver. It's got a full-size knife on it. The Gerber Center Drive is a real good, heavy-hitting, actual work multi-tool. I wouldn't consider it a good EDC, like you just throw it in your pocket. Absolutely not. But it's got a really sensible tool set. I love the pry bar. I love the awl, although I broke it, you can see, and I had to regrind it to a new tip. I used it that much. I'd never use an awl on anything else, but these ones on the Gerbers are so fine. I actually use them for a bunch of different things. Anyway, I've been loving the Gerber Center Drive. It's real dirty, dusty from being in the chicken barn with me, but it's performed really well. For a while, I had a pouch, like one of those Benchmade pouches actually, with a little bit kit in it and some knife lube and a pair of Knipex parallel pliers and a flashlight. My flashlight went through the wash and has died. And the little Benchmade sort of caddy pouch that I was using also wore out. So I grabbed one of these Civivis, and this is kind of a cool idea, I guess. If you're a knife guy, you always end up throwing these things away, right? But what I did is I made a little kit that I can stick in my pocket when I have my multi-tool. It's got a bit kit with all the bits that I normally use. Great thing about the Gerber Center Drive is it uses ordinary hex bits. So I got like a Torx bit that fits most of my knife pivots there, a couple flats, a couple sizes of square, a couple sizes of Phillips, a hexagonal 4mm, which is really nice because they use that for a lot of stuff, especially in New Zealand, and a star bit, all ready to go. Oh, I got a little tire gauge. That's kind of a funny thing. And then, as I said, some Knipex 4-inch parallel pliers. These are just really nice to have in case you need the ability to expand really big and just get purchase on a big nut or bolt or piece of plumbing to get a job done without going and finding something else. And I have some knife pivot lube. I'm trying out this new brand, KPL. I just found it on Amazon. It's knife specific, and I always use the Benchmade blue lube. And honestly, I don't have any complaints about Benchmade's lubricants. They work really well for lubricating your knife pivot, and I was really pleased with it for a long time. I was just about to run out, and I looked at the price of some new stuff and looked up alternatives, and I like the nozzle on this KPL better. It's just got this tiny little nozzle. You can get the lubricant right where you want it. And they also have like different weights of it, and it also comes in like a smaller bottle, which I find is kind of nice because you can chuck it in a little care package like this, and then you're pretty ready to go for any of your EDCs. If you want to change the functionality of your multi-tool, if you want to tighten and lube your knife, if you're out doing work. I had, a flashlight and wrench, and so it just expands the capability of what you can do at any given moment, which has been really nice. So Civivi pouch, it's a fun EDC idea. If you have like the carpenter pants with like the pouches on each side, I've been wearing some Levi's 555s, and they have a pouch on each side, and I just chuck a multi-tool in one side and the pouch in the other side, and then between the two, with this multi-tool, you've got a lot of functionality available. Last thing for Farm EDC episode 1, and this may surprise some of you because in the past, I've been a little bit snobby about 8CR13 MOV steel. Now that said, I read Dr. Laren Thomas's article on it and his video, and it's kind of there in the 14C28N category, a little less tough and pretty similar edge retention, which is fairly surprising to a lot of us steel snobs that really subscribe to the powder steel, super steel mentality. Upon reflection, as I'm reading this article that Laren put out and watching this video, I started to realize that I made all my judgment calls on 8CR13 MOV based on observations of like 1990s and early 2000s Kershaw knives. And I'm not down on Kershaw at all. Like, I love Kershaw, but I don't think at that moment in the industry, there was a big focus on achieving a high hardness level. I don't think that heat treatment was as valued or as known about at that time. And so a lot of the things rolling off the shelf were really malleable and soft, or like a lot of, I guess you'd say, retained austenite if you want to be a nerd about it. And the result was that I always had these bad experiences with 8CR13 MOV steel. And throughout the time that I would use it, I would sharpen it on a king sharpening stone, which I have found in some of my later research that it can be a little bit hard to deburr straight off of a water stone with no strop. And that's how I was sharpening at that time. I'm not saying you can't do it. There's definitely tips and tricks that help you get that burr off, but there can sometimes be an unfelt micro burr or wire edge. And I'm confident that back when I was trying out 8CR13 MOV, I was definitely leaving a wire edge most of the time. So I thought, hey, it's probably time for me to give this steel another try. And lo and behold, Blade HQ had a big overstock of the Columbia River knife and tool Piet. This is a Jens Anso and Jesper Voxnay's design. It's all scratched up because I've been using it every day, almost every day here on the farm. It's 8CR13 MOV. It's probably about a 2.6 inch blade with a little choil up front. Really useful drop point blade design. Blue anodized backspacer. Just a really well executed knife that Blade HQ had on sale for $13.99. Now, $13.99, my goodness, I would almost consider buying soft 420HC for that price. I probably wouldn't. But Columbia River, I have had some experiences with them leaving steel too soft in the past, but I wanted to check them out, and I've not been displeased with that. Now, a lot of that may be due to my advances in sharpening. I'm a little bit better at getting burr off these days, or detecting it and then doing something to strop it away even after the fact when I'm done sharpening. But overall, this is a 3mm thick knife with a good distal taper, but still a pretty thick tip. It's got a generous hole opener, which you can open with your thumb, or you can reverse flick, although I just tightened the pivot, so it's a little bit harder. It's got some nylon handles, but it's really solid feeling nylon. Like, I can't flex that stuff at all. Backspacer helps because it backs it up a little bit more. And the texturing done on this is some of the best. It's among the best that I've ever felt on a nylon knife. It feels very secure in the hand. And to be honest, I've been cutting through like 1-inch polypropylene pipe with this knife and this little liner lock, and just like, and it has done an admirable job. That's probably what a lot of the scratches are from. Anyway, overall, I would say that my experience now with good sharpening technique lines up pretty closely with the things that Laren Thomas is saying about the performance of 8CR13 MOV steel. So I personally am having a little bit of a revival of interest in and acceptance of this particular steel. I think back in the past, I heard rumors that, oh, it's not made purely, or it's too soft. Maybe there's some substance to those claims at that time. But I think nowadays, whatever process they're doing, combined with the heat treatment that has been done with this particular knife, combined with my learning a bit more and getting a little bit better at deburring and sharpening, I have been solidly pleased with this steel. I would put it probably in the same category as like 440C, and in terms of my enjoyment. It's probably not quite as pleasant to sharpen as 14C28N, but it's pretty nice, to be honest. I've been really pleased with the fine edge retention of 8CR13 MOV, and as I wear in kind of my wear-in time on this knife, I do appreciate the smooth lines of like a Voxnay's or Anso knife. Like they do a good job with their sort of sculpted curves. It sort of harkens to me of like your like Ray Laconico, like tasteful designs, but they very often got this cutout in a Voxnay's Anso knife, and I'm digging it. I'm digging it. This is a $14 knife that, after having used a bunch, I think I would have been willing to pay almost $40 for, because it's that solid of a knife. I've been finding with some of the knives that I'll feature next episode that there are some farm tasks where you're prying on stuff and it gets a little scary, because if your tip is too thin, then I get a little worried that I'm going to chip out the tip or break it off. And this tip has been a really nice balance of, it's got some beef right behind it, but like food prep and stuff like that, it's still got a high enough grind that it feels really good. So that's it for today. That's Farm EDC episode 1. I'll throw a video on screen you guys can check out if you want to. If you want to hear more about my time in the US and the knives that I got from my viewers, I will share another Farm EDC episode next week, Farm EDC 2, and I'll follow it up the following week with a little sneak peek at what I have been using as my mobile sharpening setup while in the US. So stay posted for those. I hope you guys are doing really well. And, remember to go take care of the people in your life. I've been really honored to be able to be here and serve and take care of my father-in-law and my family in this time of need. So I just encourage you to show up for the people who are depending on you. And I'll see you guys around. Peace out from the home slice. You guys take care.